welcome to the Fired Up with CJ show. We have Andrea here talking about her book, Future Life Progression. And in the first segment, we talked about the various ways that her clients are adapting to the recent changes in our world or our fundamental work and what we do. And in the close of that segment, I was saying that quite a few people that I've been coaching have actually are realizing that they have a real disdain and hatred for the actual work that they do, and they want to do something else. And so I wanted to talk about one of the chapters. It's the last strategy 10 in your book was understanding your purpose. So I know it's the last one, but can we jump a little bit ahead and talk a little bit about what you've observed and what kinds of, and in your book you actually have some hypnosis, visualizations, and intuition work. So maybe you can share with us some of those things for this topic of find your purpose, understanding your purpose.
It's an interesting subject. I find it an interesting subject because up until relatively recent times, again, we're probably going back to grandparents' day, they didn't have any options. You did what you did, and that was kind of governed. It's like my dad worked in a factory. My granddad was an electrician. You know, if where you lived, it was farmland, you worked on the farm. If your dad was a doctor, you're probably going to be a doctor. It's kind of mapped out for you. And if you go back further, it really was just you did what you had to do to feed your kids. Otherwise, they're starved to death. You know, you freeze. You just did what. So we were in survival mode. So it's only relatively recent times we had the option to go, oh, I don't know if I fancy that. I quite fancy that. Or I'd really love to do that. That's very new in the world, really, isn't it? So we're at that point now where we can stop and think, what would I love to do? I've actually got, it's not in the book, I've got one of my favorite meditations that I put together. I feel like I download this stuff sometimes. So I downloaded this meditation into my head from somewhere or other. And it's one of my favorites where I take you back to that first point of being.
Okay, can you take us through it? As how short it is? Can we do it in this segment?
What I can do is I can send you over a link. I can actually give it to your listeners. I'd love you to actually do the whole process.
Right.
But what you do is you go back to that first point when you were one cell. Before you split into two cells, I take you back in time and you look at that one cell on your hand. And just in your mind, you think, what you're going into this lifetime to do. What is your purpose? And you almost use it as a crystal ball. And you find out what you need to know. And then when you find out what you need to do, it splits into two and then four as the embryo grows. So I've got that recorded. I'd happily share it with your listeners because it's one of my favorites. But yeah, your purpose is it's in your heart. You know, if you just sit and breathe into your heart, and there is a question that gets to it. And it's, what would you do if you couldn't fail? If you couldn't fail, what would you do? It kind of gets rid of all the stuff we put in the way. And we go, well, I can't do that. And it gets rid of all the stuff we put in the way. What would you do if you couldn't fail? And you kind of go, oh, I'll do so and so. So you breathe in and out of your heart. Oh, and then just say, what would I do if I couldn't? And people answer that very, very quickly. Or they'll sit there and go, well, I could do this, could do that. All these round the houses conversations. And then you ask them that question and they tell you. The thing is, it's going to be something that you're passionate about, something that makes a difference. I usually find unhappy people don't have a purpose. Everyone needs to know that they're doing something to make a difference in the world. I believe everybody's happier when they have a purpose, when they're donating something to the world, when they're doing something that makes them want to jump out of bed of a morning. So yeah, I'll send you over a link.
Okay, all right, I'll tell you one that I just recently done so that maybe you can help coach people through it. And then maybe, so for me, I just did this recently. I had someone do a shamanic journey, and I went on this Navajo blanket, and it was me speaking in Europe, and it was me talking to a gigantic audience and speaking about my life experiences. And I just thought, what? I don't even know what I would be speaking about. And really, like, that's not That's not something that my conscious mind, if you ask me, CJ, please tell me what you would imagine doing, be like, well, I could see doing iterations of what I've done all along. Like I could see myself coaching people. I can see myself coaching maybe a group of 10 to 12. I can even maybe see myself coaching like an online class, where there's, hundreds of people. But standing in front of an audience giving, and I did a TED talk, so it's not like surprising. I've talked in front of people like 1,000 people or more, so it's not an unusual thing. I can't even say that I enjoy doing that, but it was one of those things that came out of nowhere that I thought,
Mm,
what? I don't even understand this. So,
yeah.
what does one do with an intuition that feels like, what? I have no idea what to even do with this. It seems so out of range.
I love that. Well, the thing is, when I take people into the future, that's the major part. And
Mhm.
every chapter of the book's got a process where you go into the future. Now, supposing I take you 5 years into the future and see where you are and what you're doing,
Mhm.
and talk to the future you, ask the future you, what is it you're doing? Are you happy with that? Is there anything we should have done differently? Hindsight from the future. So you probably were tapping into the future. And the
I
amount of
was. It was
things,
actually going into the 3 years into the future, so you're exactly right.
yeah, yeah. So imagine that. And the thing is, we do this all the time now. At first, we thought it was a fluke. We thought, oh, that was just a lucky guess. But we consistently do this. The processes actually work. If people talk about being regressed, well, go forward and take a
Mhm.
peek. It's astonishing. 3 times, CJ, 3 times I've moved into houses that I'd seen in the future. I had
Mm.
no idea where they were. I had no idea how to find them, and I've ended up living in them. And literally, I've gone to an estate agent that says, show you this house. And you go and look around and go, oh, this is the one. This is the one I
Wow.
saw. It's bizarre. I've had people see their future husband or wife, and then they've met them and go, whoa, I better not tell them this quickly. We're
Yeah,
getting
it's like a
married.
precognition kind of thing where
It
you're
is.
actually
It absolutely is.
yeah, precognition of your future self, but it seems so okay, so when you see a house, it's oh wow, like I didn't imagine myself in the house that you're in or
Yeah,
wherever,
yeah,
but then you're there and thought, "Oh, this is the thing that I saw."
yeah.
So, I guess I just don't like me speaking in front of large audiences in Europe. I'm like, what? I just don't see. I mean, would I love traveling? Yes, I love traveling. Do I love speaking on large audiences? I honestly don't know.
Do you know the difference? The bit you're not taking into consideration.
Yep.
I can feel this. Um, it's when you're talking to that audience, and you will do that talk. It's because what you're telling them will be so valuable to them. It won't be about you. It will be about them.
Hmm.
You will have something really valuable to tell them that they really need to hear. So you won't even be focused on you and how you feel and what you want to do. That won't be part of it.
But then I don't even know what I would be coaching or talking. I have no idea what I'd be. There's no like you have this program that you've developed over the course of years, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you're getting downloads. I haven't been getting any downloads. So, but I am able to capture downloads if I were to I'm very open, so I could, but I just
Mm.
don't understand where this content is supposed to come from.
Well, it doesn't always make sense at the time. I mean, the house I'm in now, the one I'm actually in right this minute, I wasn't planning on moving at all. I don't like modern houses. I tend to live in old houses. I like to have a proper
Hmm.
fireplace, solid walls. Um, it was not what I would move into at all. But various circumstances, I ended up, and that was the perfect house for me to get at that
Mm.
moment. Another one, we had offices. Well, a friend was also in the same offices as me, and she suddenly thought she was going to be super rich. She said, Anne, I won't need to work. I'm going to be so rich. I see myself driving through these big black gates down this long drive into this huge house. I'm obviously going to win the lottery or something. Um, anyway, our offices closed down, so we looked for some new ones, and they were through these black gates. I'm still in them offices now, down the long drive to the big old house. We did, of course, we only rent little offices in there. And she suddenly We moved in there. We were there a while. We've forgotten about that 'cause it was the year before, and tons of things happened. And she suddenly went, "Oh, this was the," and she described it perfectly. We were there several years, and then she suddenly, I gave her another session. She said, "I'm no longer here. I'm on top of a funky nail bar. I've got my own premises." She described everything they looked like. 6 months later, a chap come up to her and said, "I've heard," she's a beautician, "Yeah, I've heard about your amazing work. I've got a brilliant nail bar, but the upstairs isn't used. I want to turn it into a beauty salon and I want you to run it." And it was exactly what she described.
Mm.
So the thing is, she wasn't planning on opening that. She just had the room,
So like
saw
she
her
wasn't even
clients.
looking for it or opening her
No,
eyes up or like
no,
keeping her eyes open or kind of driving
no.
around finding the thing. It just kind of came to her without
He came to
her
her. Yeah,
effort.
he stopped her and said, "I've heard you're great. Would you come and run the upstairs and set it all up?" And he painted it. He said it needs decorating. He painted it in the colours she described. I mean, we wrote it all down. She said, "I went up there and there's the colours."
Okay, this is like the opposite of the business robot piece, because
It
this requires a certain amount of magical thinking. Like, I don't know how this content is going to come to me. I don't know how it's going to be in Europe, but it will just come. Just like that's what I'm hearing.
it'll unfold.
And and,
Yeah.
and, and yeah, and I'm wondering because I in this class in shamanism, the gal that was teaching it said that when if there's some purpose, higher purpose, and you
Mm,
finally hear it, then everything will kind of like boop boop boop, all the doors will open. You won't have to do
yeah.
anything aside from say, "Oh, I see my wonderful flat," and then it will just boom boom like manifest itself. Is
Do you
that
know,
what you're finding with
it is
clients?
absolutely true, and I'm not actually comfortable admitting it, and I'll tell you why. Because I find a lot of spiritual people sit back, wait for the universe to make it drop in their lap. I
Right,
find they kind of put their little order into the universe and go, "Oh well, I'm going to get a £1 million house, and
right.
it'll manifest because that's what I want." And they sit back. Even we've got Oprah Winfrey. She champions The Secret. If she sat in her front room all those years ago, just writing it down on a bit of paper, she'd still be sitting there. She's hard-nosed, clever, brilliant businesswoman, and she made it happen. So I'm not a fan of just letting it happen, but because I think we're supposed to work hard. I've just come from that background. We're meant to work hard. But I've got to tell you, when I first started working with this, I was in the first office, which was in a bad area. It was at the back of the factory, like that was next door, and it was noisy. It was a bad area. And my life changed overnight. It absolutely changed. I started going into the future, and I saw myself and a big name in self help. I took him into the future, and he sort of said, "And you've got a 3 book deal." When you're unknown from a bad area like me, you don't get a 3 book deal. You don't get 1 book deal. You have to be Victoria Beckham to get a 3 book deal, not
Right.
little me. Within weeks, I had a 3 book deal. It was just, I went to a wedding. An agent said, "Anne, I've heard about your work. Have you been thinking of about time you wrote a book?" And I said, "I'm working on one right now." And thank the Lord, if there is a Lord, um, the self-help guru actually did the same process to me. It took me into the future where I saw the title of the book. My first book was Instant Intuition. So thank goodness, because this guy said, I said, "Yeah, I'm working on a book called Instant Intuition." I promise you, I only had the title because he said, "Oh, bring it to me." And I got into panic because I only had the title. I'm talking about halfway through this book. So I had to rush off and, you know, put something together for it. But within weeks, he'd got me a 3 book deal. The publisher said it's the fastest deal they've ever done. They broke all their rules. Everything the doors did open. They did. I don't even like saying it because I think we should put effort in and not just sit asking the universe. But I've got to say, we go into the future. What I think we're doing is we're bringing that good stuff in the future back into our current consciousness. That's what I think we're doing, and then it starts to manifest really quickly, and
Right,
that
because
makes me
so
so
the
happy.
effort in that case, we're not sitting on the couch, but you're kind of going into the future. And
Mm.
I mean, you're putting yourself out there. You weren't necessarily like, out there at the wedding, kind of like wheeling and dealing, someone came
Mm.
to you. So
Yeah.
it was kind of, you did, you weren't on the couch, you did the vision and you
Yeah.
had it in your current consciousness. And that
Yeah.
was the only work that you did. And then saying yes and going, yes, the book is called Instant Intuition. Like, which is stepping through the door and saying yes. Like you could have said, no, I don't have any books. I don't, I'm a little bit afraid of book, but you said yes because you had that vision. So then when the person said, do you
Yes.
have the book? You're
Yeah.
like, yes. So that was the not sitting on the couch saying yes to when the opportunity came.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I've not thought of it that way, but that's a really good point. The other thing is, I think that we try and make things happen with our current limitations, and we've all got limited thinking, or don't believe I deserve, or a bit scary, or all that kind of. We've all got some sort of element of limitation, so we're trying to manifest the £1 million house. But deep down, and Stuart Wilde was my favourite spiritual teacher, and he used to say, it's a bit like somebody sit there and they want to win the lottery, and they go, I want to win the lottery, I want to win 5 million. He said at the back of their head, they're thinking, but my sister will hate me, and my friends will get jealous, and my husband will turn into a playboy. And he said, the universe points down at you and said, come back when you know what you want. So I love that. Stuart Wilde's the funniest guy. Um, and that really, really makes a lot of sense. So I think what we do, it's almost if we are, by going into the future, we align, we start to feel what it feels like. We
Mm,
start to bring it into our consciousness as if
mm,
it's now. And when you start
mm.
bringing it into consciousness, if it's now, you feel it. You jump beyond the limitations.
I love it. Okay, I particularly love as we wrap up, what I love about this is that we've been talking about like in the previous segment, during COVID, it's
Mm,
honing your craft. Well, not
mm,
what, this in some ways is refining your lens. Like get clear with really what you want so that you can align
mm,
yourself to this wonderful consciousness. That takes time. It takes time
yeah.
to get super clear and do this visioning work because we
Mm,
haven't, as you said, we haven't paused, we haven't stopped. And so all of
yeah.
a sudden trying to vision, we're like trying to visualize something while we're driving 80 miles down the highway,
Mm,
or kilometers, excuse me, or maybe miles. No, you're miles. So we're driving 80 miles down the highway and you're like, what's the vision? What's the vision? Where you need to stop and then visualize. Then you can get there. I love it. So let's actually, during the next segment, talk about, so you have your vision. There's idea of finding your reaching out to your team and tribe and networking. I want to talk a little bit about
mhm.
that. We've been talking to Ann Jurish, who is talking about her book, Future Life Progression, in which we talked about one chapter in her book, and she will send us a link, and we can actually see some of this beautiful meditation that she got. Thank you so much.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show. Would love your support in any way by giving me comments below or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.